Hello, and welcome to our Luminaire Club. We're a little late this month, and I do apologize. I'm getting over sinus infection and bronchitis. So if I start coughing, we will pause until I stop hacking my lungs out, and then we'll start back up again. So bear with me. Today we're taping at the shop, so unfortunately, you Marie Cat fans are not going to see Marie today. She will not be attacking my machine. So we are going to make patches today, and then we will be sending that out immediately. And then we will be taping the next two videos here within the next week, and you will get two videos to make up for the months that we've missed. And those videos are going to be on doing quilting in the hoop. And there's actually two videos to that because it is a longer process, and we want to go through the steps on that step by step. And then there's many different ways to do quilting and many different options for quilting that are actually in the machine, but are also things that you can download from other companies. So we want to touch on all of that, but we are really going to focus on quilting and it's going to be a Christmas table runner. We have the fabric at the store, so you'll be able to see that, and that should be coming out in a few weeks after you get this video. So I just want to touch base on that. What we are doing today is we are going to make patches. A lot of people have been asking me how to make patch, or they'll come in and say, I'm trying to stitch a onesie, but you know, this base of the machine is just so big, it's very hard to do it. Well, you don't have to stitch your onesie out. You can actually make a patch, because the fusible part of that patch will not come loose on the garment. So that's what's nice about that. So I always tell people, if you don't have a 10 needle or a 6 needle, or you have hoops that will work to do that, and you want to do a cap, or you want to do a onesie, or even if you want to put something on a shirt, you can always just do a patch. And we're going to do that today, and then we'll show you step by step what you can do. Also, a few things I'm going to touch base on is the items that we're using to make the patches are from Dime, which can be purchased through the store. If we are out, we can order them for you. You know, with the pandemic and everything, shipping is just a nightmare right now. So not knowing when things are coming in is pretty much, you know, same old nowadays. But we are getting quite a bit of shipments in, but I know we've been running out of these patch kits. So I'm going to show you what they are, but if we are out by the time you get in, because I know after this video we will be selling quite a few. So what I am using today is, if you can tell by what I've hooped here in the hoop, it looks like plastic. It actually is not plastic, and you can see I have some masking tape still on it. It is actually a water-soluble stabilizer. It's not the same type of water-soluble that you use when you're doing freestanding lace. That one is more of like a cloth. This feels more like plastic, so that's what you're going to use. Dime has this patch maker kit that has the stabilizer, but also has the fusible permanent adhesive for the back of your patches that you can purchase separately. So you can purchase it together. If you already have water soluble and you don't need more of that, you can just buy the fusible permanent adhesive for patches, and it actually comes in a bigger tube. So this is the tube you get. It's 9 inches by 10 yards, and it's called fusible permanent adhesive. I don't know if I've said that enough. So you can also rewind it if you've forgotten. What's also nice about the patch maker kit is on the back, and I kind of ripped it open and I dropped it on the floor, so I'm going to grab that. What I'm going to do is take my handy dandy laminator, because I love laminating, and I will laminate this back together so I have it when I'm ever using it. But the instructions are on the back on how to do it. So they're telling you to use a 4x4 hoop. I'm using a 5x7 because then I can do 2 or 3 patches at the same time if I want to. And then it's pretty much telling you to stitch it out with the stabilizer. And then when you're done, you're going to lay the permanent adhesive to the back, and it's going to tell you to iron that on. And then once you've ironed that on, for 8 to 12 seconds, you're just going to pull it right off the paper, and now you'll have the glue on the back, and you can just fuse it to any garment that you're doing, and you just press. So you don't iron is moving it back and forth. You literally just put the iron down and let it sit for 8 to 12 seconds, it says. So I'll fix that so we have that also at the shop for you guys. If you ever lose yours or just need one because you already have that and you just want the instructions, we can definitely make a copy for you. So today we're going to go on to the Luminaire. You turn on your machine, get it calibrated. Make sure your hoop is hooped with the stabilizer, the water-soluble stabilizer. We're going to go into embroidery mode. But before I go into embroidery mode, you can go to embroidery this way or you can go into embroidery this way. We're going to go into Disney because, of course, I've got to use the Disney features. So I'm going to make a Disney badge. And so I've been required by my staff member to make a mini. So I'm going to make a mini because she wants to give that to her grandbaby. And so I am going to do that for her. I'm going to hit set and I'm going to, now I have the 5x7 hoop and I want to make sure that I have this. If I want to add 2 or 3 of them to that, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go into my settings menu and I want to pick, if you notice, it'll come up to page 8 because I have the embroidery machine on. And if I go to frame size, I'm going to pick the 5x7 frame. And by picking the 5x7 frame, now you'll notice the box in here. That is going to tell me where I need to keep my design so I don't go outside of it. So when you go to embroider and you put it in, it doesn't say, oh, you got to change to a bigger hoop because now it's outside the parameter and you can't use the 5x7 hoop. But if you bring it in, it'll let you do it. And I can also bring it down a little bit more. Or if I bring it up and then I add the border around it to do the patch and it goes outside, I can just clump it and move it back in. But I will show you instead of talking to you about it. So I'm going to hit, I'm going to go to edit. And I want to hit this button here. It's the crown with a little design. That is your patch making button. So I want to create a distance. You'll see there's a satin stitch all the way around it. And I can decide how far away I want to have it. I could just hold it down and it'll do it. Or you can just do it slowly by just tapping it and see how big of a surrounding you want to have around Minnie. I'm going to do, I think that looks good. What do you think, Wendy? Does that look good? Mm-hmm. Or should I have it come in a little bit more? I can never decide. But it gives it just a nice little frame. Actually, I kind of like that. So I'm going to hit that button. You'll notice I'm right up to the 5x7. So I can bring it down by just hitting move. And it'll move the whole design down. And I'll move it over a little bit. I'm going to hit OK. That's it. There's nothing to it, okay? So what I'm going to do now is if I want to do, let's see. I was going to say if I want to do another one, I would just hit that, but it's blocked out. And the reason why it's blocked out is it won't do that. But I want to see what this does. Okay, so I hit the square. You'll notice a square and a circle and then a big square around it. Let's say I wanted to move Minnie in that echoing stitch that I have around it for the patch. If I hit that button, now there's another red box in the center. Now I can move Minnie any way I want. But I don't want to do that, so I'm going to get rid of that. And the reason why is because I want to keep Minnie pretty much square within that. But if you want to change it, you can go ahead and do that. So I wanted to make sure you knew that. Now, it just picked a random color for the satin stitch. You can go in and change your color if you want. I personally could care less. So, I mean, you could just page through and then change this color. So you would have to go, let's see. I think you just changed, oh, that's changing to the different colors. But if you wanted, you could just change through. You can't just, oh, I guess you can just touch it. I thought you had to go somewhere else. See, I'm learning something too. So if I touch this one and then I go down to this one, I think I have to page down. There. So now I page down, but why won't it? Oh, because the applique, that's why I have to hit this. So I want to change it because you have the stitch out for the applique material, which I'm going to show you. So if I want to change that to a specific color just so I can see it, let's say I want to do black and see what it looks like with black. And I'm like, I don't really like black. Let's see what white looks like. I kind of like the way the white looks. It's hard to see, but I like the way the white looks. So I'm going to change that and keep that to white. And I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so that's how you can change your colors on your patch. So now I can go ahead and hit embroidery, or I can add. So I can hit add, and then I can go to Mickey Mouse again, and now I want to do Mickey. And now I'm going to hit set, and I'm going to move Mickey out of the way. I bring him down here, and now I'm going to go to edit mode again, and I'm going to hit the little parameter thing, and there he is. And I'm going to change it, make it a little bit bigger. I can never decide. I think that looks good. So now I want to change the color on that. So I'm going to hit the color shuffle again, and I'm going to page down because I want to make sure that, I got to find the button here. There, I just got to go up like that. Okay, so I'm wanting to change this. So I'm going to make sure I go down. I got to remember, don't hit that, hit this. I always forget that. Now I can go in and I can pick, I want to go to embroidery colors. I can pick and see if I like white around there. I don't like the white around Mickey. I'm going to make Mickey a little bit different. Maybe I'll do black. I kind of like the black. So maybe we'll change it up and do black around it. You can always change while you're stitching too if you don't like that. You can just, when it says black, put blue in there if you want. That is fine. So now I'm ready to go ahead and stitch out. I'm going to go to embroidery. And now let's say I get it in there and I put my hoop in and it says, oh, I'm a little outside the parameter, change to a different hoop. Take the hoop out, and then what you can do is you can move it in regular embroidery mode. So the carrot's just gonna move, and it didn't tell me that I was out of the parameter. But let's say I go to move it. Let's say I go to embroidery edit, and let's say Minnie is moved outside the perimeter, and I go to embroidery. Because I don't have the hoop in the machine, it's not gonna recognize what hoop I have in. But then let's say I go and put the hoop in, and now it's gonna say change to larger embroidery frame. I'm just gonna take the hoop out. I'm going to now move her in. Oh, it's moving them all together. So I'm gonna return, and I'm gonna move him back in, and I'm gonna move her back in. Because sometimes we get a little bit too close to the line, and it still will say you're outside the perimeter. That's why you have the line there, so you can really watch that. But just in case, you just can do some of that maneuvering. It's just things that you learn when you start doing things. So I just want to kind of show you that. Now you'll notice I have a piece of tape in there. So that they put masking tape. I don't know why they put masking tape on there, but it's harder than sin to get it out of there. So I don't want to stitch on that at all. So I'm going to hit the camera, and I'm going to scan my hoop, because I want to make sure that I don't have that interfering with my design. But I don't want to waste all that stabilizer either. So I'm just going to scan it, and it'll come up. This is what's amazing about this machine, is you can just scan it, and then you can move your designs away from, see that masking tape is right there. So I might move Mickey down a little bit farther, or move Minnie over a little bit more. Or maybe what I'll do is I'll move Minnie right over the top of it. Because once you put that fusible stuff on, you won't even see it. So I want to make sure that he's not going to be over anything, and you're going to put fabric on there. I just want to cover it completely up so that it's not halfway on and halfway off. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit embroidery. Okay. Now, if I don't want to have that background in there while it's sewing, I can go into my settings, and I can go page over. If I want to delete that background that I highlighted, I can hit delete, and that is on page 10 of 12. And if you ever scan something and you can't get it off because it will stay on there, and you go, okay, my last thing that I scanned is on there, how do I get it off? Always go to page 10 and hit delete, and then when you come in, it's gone. Okay? So that's all you need to do. Now we're in embroidery mode because it doesn't say embroidery, and we're ready to stitch it out. So one thing I'm noticing is it's first stitching out the designs, and so I need to move. So either I need to move the layout on there. So let's see. That's not what I do. Okay. Because it's not automatically coming up like that. Because what I could have done is, I don't think you can do that. Let's see. So I'm trying to see if I can move. can to shift it. You can't. So you've got, one thing you've got to notice is, and I'll have to check on that to see if there's a way that we can move the thread colors so that, I'm going to see what this is. No, that's not it. So that you actually stitch out, you want to stitch the applique piece out first before you stitch, because you want to have the fabric down first. So what we're going to do is, instead of doing that, you'll notice the first thing when we go into embroidery is it's going to want to stitch out the face. Well, we don't want to do that. So we're going to hit the needle plus minus, and we're going to page down until we get to the stitch out. So we want to just mark where we're going to stitch. And since I'm going to do a white background on Minnie, and oh, before we go any farther, this is another thing that Dime has available for you. They're called poly patch twills. This is twill fabric. If you've ever patched a pair of pants, you can get patches with this kind of fabric. And so you have a variety of colors. So this one's going to come in like reds, blues. It looks like there might be white in there. This one's going to come in more darker tones of the greens, reds, golds. And then these are like neon colors, pinks, all of that, which actually Minnie and pink wouldn't be bad. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open this one. This one you can't really see it very well, but there's 3 different options. And they're each 9 inches by 24. And there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 9 different colors in there. So I'm going to open this one up. See if my fingers will allow me to open it up. There, that'll help. So now I'm going to open this sucker up, and I'm going to pick out what color. Ooh, rubber band. What color do I want? Let's see. Do I want blue? These are kind of classic colors for Disney. There's white, which is what I think I'm going to do for Minnie. And these we can special order. They just came out, so we don't have them in stock. They gave me these to try. There's a bright red, there's bright purple. They're gorgeous colors. So there's many different options of colors that you can pick from. And so we're going to go with white for Minnie. And so what I'm going to do is I want it to stitch out the white fabric. Okay. So I'm going to first, I'm just going to put white thread in. So go ahead and thread your machine. Alright, so now that the machine is threaded, I'm just going to hit the go button. It's going to lay down where I need to lay the fabric down, okay? Now if you're going to do the same color fabric for both the Minnie and the Mickey, then you can go ahead and do both stitch outs. So I'm going to show you how you just move forward to do that. Because rather than do this and then trim it out, I'm going to do both of them at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move down. And that's why I just leave my stitch plus minus up. And I'm going to go to Mickey and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lay out my placement stitch for him too. Because I'm going to do white on both of them. And even if I'm not, I'll just cut the piece out, or lay it down, trim it, and then do the next piece. I do this a lot when I'm doing freestanding lace. And I bring up 2 or 3 designs. I just lay the placement stitch, I lay the fabric down, I then do the tack down stitch, and then I trim them all rather than doing one at a time. So then I'm just gonna, you can either lay the whole thing down. I'm not going to. I'm just gonna cut a piece that I think is wide enough for both of them. And just leave it on the floor. It's just easier when it lays on the floor. Make sure it's completely covered. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the tack down for Mickey. Because then it'll just hold the piece in place for when I do the tack down for Minnie. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to move forward. I'm going to keep going this way because we're at stitch 16. So I'm going to push down and then I'm just going to go, it's going to bring me back to the beginning, to Minnie. So now we're going to do the tack down. So you want to do the second stitch, outline stitch. And it's just going to tack it down. once it stops doing its dance, then you're gonna take the hoop out of the machine. Do not take the fabric out of the hoop, okay? And you're gonna make sure when you take it out, that when you put it in and you take it out, make sure you don't push too hard. If you push too hard and this goes back, you're now recalibrated the machine. So we do not wanna do that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start trimming. So I'm just gonna show you, I'm just gonna trim like so around Minnie and Mickey's outline. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do that and then I'm gonna come back. So I'm gonna have Wendy pause it for a second so you don't have to watch me trim it. And then when I get to the end, we'll start back up. So pause the video for right now, and then we'll come back and do the trimming around it. Whatever design you decide, you're probably not doing exactly what I'm doing, but trim around your design and then hit the go button and we'll be back, okay? So I'm finishing up stitching or cutting around my applique pieces. And I'm getting very close. I don't know that you have to get that close because my satin stitch is pretty wide, but I hate having little things sticking out. So I got pretty close, and you'll notice I can get nice and close to the stitch because of the type of scissors I have. These are Quilter Select. They're duckbill scissors, but what I like about them is that duckbill doesn't come all the way out to the edge. It comes in a little bit, so you can actually get in the corners really nice. But yet this helps so that you don't cut the stabilizer, because you do not want to cut the stabilizer when you're trimming. But it also gives you that lip, so when you have it in the hoop, you can get down and dirty with the design, okay? So highly suggest, these are my favorite because they stay the sharpest, the longest, is the Quilter Select. I have the Havels, those are nice too, but they tend to dull faster than the Quilter Select ones. And they also are just a finer scissor. The metal isn't as thick as the Havels are. You also can get the Floriani ones and the OESD ones. So I have a lot of scissors because when I'm doing different things, I like different scissors for what I'm doing. So these are my favorite for doing in-depth like freestanding lace, or where I'm actually doing applique, but I need to get close enough around because you don't want to have all those whiskers sticking out, because it's going to be freestanding. So now I'm going to put the design in. Now before you put the design in, because I have white sashing around it, I can leave my bobbin thread as white. If you are going to have like black, you want to change it to black thread. If you're going to do blue, if you're going to do gray, whatever you're doing for your top thread, you need to have for your bottom when you're doing the satin stitch, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stitch the satin stitch first before I go and stitch everything else out, because I don't want this to pull away. I want the satin stitch to sit on there nice and perfectly. You can do whatever you want. With this type of fabric, it probably wouldn't matter, but I am going to go ahead and do the satin stitch first before I stitch out Minnie. And all of this is trial and error. I've never made patches before. I've just pretty much been following the directions and doing it. But you figure out what's comfortable for you. And I find that this is more comfortable for me to do it this way, so that's what I'm gonna do. And what you'll notice is I'm going to do Mickey next, and you'll notice I have black around Mickey. I'm probably going to keep it white so I don't have to change the bobbin thread, unless I have black bobbin in here, which I don't think I do. So I'm going to keep it, actually, I'll wind bobbin while it's stitching. That's another nice thing about this machine, is you can wind a bobbin while it's stitching. So I'm going to do that. So when I'm done, I can just transfer, and then I can just stitch it black. Instead of being lazy and not doing that. So you're doing two things at the same time. right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move it down until I get to the black satin stitch. And now I'm going to take the hoop out. I'm just taking the hoop out. And I'm going to change the bobbin thread from white to black, or whatever color you're doing your satin stitch. And then I'm going to thread the top with whatever I want for my black, or for my top thread. Now you'll notice I'm not going to just pull the thread out. I clipped it, and now I'm going to pull the thread from the bottom. And I've told you this before, you got to get in that practice. I tend to forget sometimes too, but you want to get in that practice where you're going to do that, so you can just go up and around. And because you don't want to, if you had a fray thread and you pull it back out, you can move the bobbin sensor out of place. So we definitely want to make sure that we don't do that. So now I'm going to go ahead and stitch this out. And then once that's done stitching, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start stitching Minnie and Mickey's body and face and all of that. So. We're going to pause for a second, let it stitch this out, and then we're going to go and stitch all of Minnie and all of Mickey out, and then we'll come back to show you what to do next. We just literally just finished stitching out the last of the design, and so you'll notice there's still 3 left over. However, we are done, so now we can just go ahead and you can hit home, or you can just leave it for right now. I'm going to take the hoop out, and as you can see, look at how nice they are. They stitched out so nice. So what you can do is you can either take it out of the hoop, or what I like to do, because you're going to tear it, I like to leave it in the hoop as I tear it out, because that tautness makes it so easy to just take the perforated areas and just pull it right out like so. Do the same thing on this side. You don't even have to run it underwater to dissolve it, because it just pops right out beautifully. Okay, so here are your little patches, and then I'm just going to go through and these little whiskers, I'm going to just trim those off. See, I didn't get very close there, so I had some whiskers sticking out. But those you can always take, we have these little rhinestone guns that are little irons to put to heat the rhinestone rounds and put those down. You can actually use that and run it across, and it'll actually fuse or burn off some of those edges there. So then you don't have that sticking out. And then I have a few little whiskers here. I'm just going to go ahead and trim those. And then I can trim that and trim that. Now you can, if you'd like, go ahead and run this underwater and get rid of the water soluble on this side. I'm not going to today because I just want to show you. But then you have to let it dry before you put the fusible stuff on. So then what I did was I cut a piece of the fusible patch attach. So I'm just going to grab this so you can see it. It's the fusible permanent adhesive. So I'm just grabbing that, and I cut a piece off. You'll notice the shiny side, this is the glue. So what they tell you to do is you're actually going to lay this down on a piece, you're going to put a piece of fabric or cloth over the top, because you're going to press this down. Okay, so you don't want your iron to touch this, but you also don't want, polyester thread will melt in the iron. So you want to have a cloth over it in order to heat it. And so that's what we're going to do, and then you just peel it away. Once it's on there sticky, it'll just peel nicely away. So I'm going to bring us over to the iron next. I'm going to just stop for a second. We're going to get situated over by the iron, and I will show you the next step. And I've got my piece of the permanent fusible glue, or whatever you want to call it, on there, and I've kind of positioned it where I want it. So now I'm going to go ahead and lay my pressing sheet, or I just use a piece of fabric, and I'm going to press, but you want to make sure the iron is hot. And it is, because I laid it flat and I created this little nice burnt spot. So don't do that. And then you're just going to press, they say 10 to 12 seconds. So 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000, 8, 1,000, 9, 1,000, 10, 1,000, 11, 1,000, 12, 1,000, which was a little longer than 12, but because I was talking. So now if I lift up, this is why I would use a scrap piece of fabric, actually, rather than using a pressing sheet, because you don't want it to damage your pressing sheet. So I'm going to pull it out. You'll notice, look at all that glue that sticks to that. So that's why I would just use a scrap piece of fabric, because all that glue is going to stick to that pressing sheet. You don't want to ruin your pressing sheet. And then you just peel this out, pull this out, leaving the fusible behind, and it should just lift up. If it doesn't just lift up, you might want to leave it a little longer. It's coming out, but it's got a little glue on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim the glue away, or I'll just pull it away. That'll work too. And then just from the corners. And now you can fuse this on to your shirt. I'm not going to do this because I don't want a Mickey Mouse shirt. I'm just saying I love Mickey Mouse, but not on this shirt. So now you take this and you lay it on your actual garment and you fuse it onto your garment. And it sticks nice and beautifully. So I am going to, and actually you should wait until it cools down, because then you won't have this problem. Once it cools down, then you can pull it up and it should peel easily, or you can just take the whole thing and then just trim around there. But just let it cool down. I pulled up a little too fast, but it still worked great. So, and then you can trim around it or just pull it, and it should just come right off. Okay, once it's cooled, mine's not completely cooled. So I could take my scissors and go around it too if I wanted to. If I'm in a hurry like I am today, I want you guys to see the end product without having to wait until it cools. So then you have your end product, and then you just press this onto your garment and you're good to go.
Set it. I hear it's wild on the board.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there's your little patches that you can put on anything. If you have any questions, just feel free to call the shop. Usually here in the afternoons, most of the time Appleton. If I'm not at the Appleton store, the girls know where to find me. The next 2 sessions will be coming to you in the next 2 weeks, which will be quilting in the hoop. Okay, thanks.